We have been writing our statements with symbols like P and Q or P or Q. However, now I'm going to introduce a different symbol. Do you see this arrow? This is called a conditional. So either underline, highlight, or something to this word. It's called a conditional. Under these conditions, something will happen. If today is Friday, then tomorrow is Saturday. If the first one happened, then the second one will happen. So that's called a conditional statement. So right beside conditional on your blue piece of paper, I want you to write the symbol P, then Q. If P, so let's even write if P, then Q. However, some of our statements don't always work in this order. It's not always P then Q. There's this thing called a converse. It is a shoe, but it's also an actor. There's a converse which just swaps them. So now the converse is Q then P. So I want you to write on the blue piece, not P then Q, but Q then P. So here's what happened. In this first example, are y'all with me? Am I going too fast?
Yes.
In this example right here, this is the conditional. If an angle is 35 degrees, then it is acute. True, right? If it's 35 degrees, then it is true. Then it's acute. However, if I word it the other way, if I swap them, if angle A is an angle, then it is 35 degrees. Is that true or false?
That's true. True.
Does it have to be 35 degrees though?
No, that's false.
It's false. It can be anything less than what?
90.
90. So it's actually false. So you see, the conditional and the converse, the way you word it, can change its truth value. Does that make sense a little bit? Okay, we're going to take 2 days to practice this. So on Monday, we're going to do an activity to practice. Okay? All right, our next one is called the inverse. Boys, it's just another way of writing it. But the inverse, you see, means we have to negate it. So we go back to our conditional, but we just negate both of them. If not P, then not Q.
So we negate both of them?
Uh-huh. That's called the inverse.
Then the other one, I bet it's when you only negate one.
Nope. You negate both of them, but look, have you noticed that each time they're just swapping? P was first, Q was first, P was first. So we're going to still negate it, but Q goes first.
Is that Q?
That is a Q, yes.
Which one?
Well, that's a P. P, 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 Q, 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 Q. Okay? So, we are usually going to be given the conditional statement first. You start with this one, and then you can write the statement as a converse, inverse, or contrapositive. However, there are these things called logically equivalent. So if the conditional is always true, so if the conditional is true, in this case it is, then the contrapositive is also true. These two are always the same. If the conditional is true, the contrapositive is true. If the conditional is false, then the contrapositive is false. They're always the same. So on your blue sheet, let's draw like a rainbow from these two. That means they're always logically. Oh, you can't even like draw a little rainbow right here? Can you do it on this? Hey, y'all, hey guys, shh, some of them are, some of them are cut differently. So somehow maybe if you could, why don't you circle both of them? Circle both of them, and then you'll know. Okay? Well, here's the problem. If you put a star beside them, conditional and contrapositive are always the same, and guess what these two are always? These are also the same. So conditional and contrapositive are logically equivalent, and the converse and the inverse are logically equivalent. So over here on our practice, on our example, if the converse is false, I don't even have to read it. If the converse is false, the inverse is also false. Chris, you with me? All right, let's practice. Hey, Kay, what time do we get out of here? Look on the right orange sheet.
10:28.
Thank you, Kaylin. Okay, let's practice. We're just going to do the first one. So this is where, if you write big, I would write on a separate piece of paper. So this is an if-then statement. It is a conditional statement. If this happens, this is our P, then Q will happen. This is our Q. First of all, let's determine whether this is true or false. If you live in San Diego, are you in California? Okay, so it's true. So now, that is the conditional. If you want to write that down, that's the conditional. Now let's write the converse. Well, what's the symbol for converse? Not P then Q, but Q then P. So let's just swap the way we're writing it. If you live in Cali, then you live in San Diego. Why?
Because there's other places like San Diego other than San Diego.
Right, you're very right. If you live in Cali, you don't have to live in San Diego. What's another city in California? Sacramento, Los Angeles, right? So this is false. Okay, we write the converse. Which one comes next? Inverse. If the converse is false, what's the inverse? No, false. They're the same. That's okay. Okay, what's the symbol for inverse? Now look here. Let's look at the symbol for inverse, and let's write it down. Not P, then not Q. So I'm going to look back at my original P. If you don't live in San Diego, then you don't live where? Good. That is false, because you don't have to live in San Diego. You can live other places. Also, I know it's false, because if my converse is false, my inverse is always false, because they're always the same. Okay, let's do our contrapositive. It's the last one left. So we have our, I like to shorten it to contra, because it's kind of a long word. So most of the time I just put contra. Look back at your blue sheet and write the symbol. Not Q, then not P. Not Q, then not P. Y'all with me? Come on, we're almost done. Well, it's Q, so I'm going to look back to see what my Q was. Q is if you live in California. So I have to negate it. So now it's if you don't live in California. If you don't live in Cali, then you don't live in San Diego. Yes.
So the inverse is true, the contra is false.
If the inverse is true, the converse is true. These two go together. Contrapositive goes with your conditional. So our conditional was true, so our contrapositive is true.
Is it perfect for everything to be true?
Do what?
Perfect for everything to be true.
Can all four of them be true? Yes. All four of them can be true. Hey guys, one last thing, then we're going to practice. Did you hear? All four of these can be the same thing, but here's what has to happen. You have to determine if your conditional is true or false. Then you need to determine if your converse is true or false. Based on those two, you can figure out these. Because if your converse is false, then your inverse is false. If your conditional is true, then your contra is true.
I get it.
Okay? Now, the hardest part, honestly,